It's not left. It's not right. It's the state versus you. Alex Ansary, Outside the Box.
Planet Earth is on fire. The gloves are off. The sleeping giant has awoken. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot possibly describe in mere English words how corrupt the Congress in the United States has become, how bought out, how sold out they have allowed themselves to be. Most importantly, how corrupt we the people have allowed them to be. After so many years, day after day, it just keeps getting worse. There's nothing I'm saying to you that's new. There's nothing I'm saying to you tonight that you have not heard before. We've heard this over and over again. But how bad is it going to get before we take action? Let me testify and stand before you tonight and declare that we are at war. Not simply the war in Iraq, or the war with the police state, or the war with the surveillance society. This is about freedom of speech. 7 days ago, the Cope bill passed the House. Net neutrality is in jeopardy. And we saw one congressman and woman after another sell their morals, sell their principles out to big business. Verizon, AT&T, Quest, Bell South, and A&T, because they are becoming one. The almighty power of the dollar. Is that what it's all come down to? Report number one. So the U.S. House of Reps has now effectively done their part. Not just George W. Bush, friends, the House of Reps, in selling out free speech over the internet. Now, they debated this concept, kind of debated. I don't think it was much of a debate. They kind of smeared the issue of network neutrality. And of course, they've dealt a bitter blow to many of us that have struggled over the years to build up this thing called cable access television, this large part of American heritage, because that will be affected as well as the internet. Now, internet companies like Amazon, eBay, and Google, even Craigslist, have engaged in last-minute lobbying, getting the people that go to their websites against this criminal, unethical, demonic legislation, because their businesses are going to be affected in the meantime. This passed with a vote of 269 yes to let COPE pass through, to get it through, and of course the mainstream media never informed us before this was supposed to happen. Americans did not know that their access to the internet was in jeopardy, because the sad, sick truth is big media has a stake in this. Only 152 voted to stop the COPE bill. Now, the vote fell largely among Republican leadership lines, mostly voting for it and Democrats against it, but there was a large bipartisan effort to get this bill across. More specifically, Joe Barton, a Republican in Texas, and of course the Democrat from Illinois, yeah, that's Joe Barton, as the screen, as you see right there, from Texas, the co-sponsor. And here, Bobby Rush from Illinois, the Democrat. Yes, you have a Caucasian Republican and an African-American Democrat, a perfect balance. So it would seem at the appearance. We are being deceived. They are promising that now the issue is pricing. Everything will be cheap. Everything will be much more affordable. Immediately, everything will be knocked down. But they've deceived you before. That's what they said with the Telco Act. And what happened with the Telco Act? Rates went up. And Clear Channel went from owning almost nothing, just a few stations, because at that point they had the FM, AM, and the TV channel rule, which is also known as the 777 rule. 7 AM, 7 FM, 7 TV. 96 changed that, and Clear Channel went immediately to 1,100 channels nationwide and growing. In the world of news, as you'll see later on through from the clip Network, which I'm going to show a little bit later tonight, the news departments across the nation over the years, at the same time that this media consolidation has been happening, newsrooms have been shutting down. People have been laid off. And now the information is just coming from a few stations. You have CNN radio, ABC radio, and all the other voice of reasons out there, and the Coulters, and the O'Reillys, and the Larsons. This is what comes out of the loudspeaker, which we'll talk about later on, and how they are condoning and encouraging torture around the world. It's sick. I am sick to my stomach. Now, there's going to be a lot of news and a lot of information coming your way over the course of the next hour. Don't freak out. Don't panic. Don't let the information that I give to you tonight put you in a diabolical state of fear, terror. This information, again, is meant to empower you, because we have no choice left at this point. The only thing we can do is fight back. But it's how we fight back. Violently is not the answer, for that is the deception. That's exactly what they want, and that is what Kellogg, Root, and Brown is for, and the concentration camps. To deal with that uprising, as sick as it sounds, as crazy as it sounds, if you read the papers, you'll learn for yourself that it is happening. But we haven't felt the brunt of it yet here, but we will. Verizon and AT&T have no soul, have no conscience. When you read about their statements on how they feel about network neutrality and their response to the allegations, the charges that we the people have brought against them, there is no response. And why again are we referring to Verizon and AT&T as people? That's again back to corporate personhood. They are not people. There are spokesmen. There are spokeswomen that are appointed, that are employees of Verizon, AT&T, Quest, Comcast, and all the rest. But their guard changes as well, just like in politics. And just because they may believe that they have your best interests at heart, you know as well as I do the government is going to swallow up these companies. You know as well as I do that they work together. The lobbyists have spent millions on many of the congressmen that you're going to see and hear in this next clip. I want you to look at this next clip of America today, of our power structure, the so-called defenders of the people, the defenders of those that at some point could be under attack from the executive branch. Now, technically, the executive branch, the White House, the administration, could only do so many criminal things. If they were to walk in, announce they were a dictator, and announce that they were going to start locking many of us up and enslaving us, we the people would have to rise to the occasion and say, no, that's not okay. But most of all, that is what our Congress is there for. As I'll explain later on tonight, they have not done that, nor are they aiding us in sharing our voices and our real human perspectives on this issue. When we come back, we will continue with the news, and later on towards the end of the program, take your phone calls. Stick around.
Motion.
I want to thank the gentleman for yielding.
The gentleman from Texas yields.
Mr.
The
Speaker.
gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Texas must remain on his feet.
Yeah, ask them if they're...
The gentleman may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I've heard it all. I've heard every argument against the bill, and I've heard all in this motion to recommit. But I must rise to oppose this motion to recommit. And I don't do it lightly, but I must do it. I must do it because, Mr. Speaker, what I've heard in terms of from the opponents of this bill is so confusing. It's created a confused state in this chamber. But I would ask all of my colleagues to not be confused about this bill. This is a good bill. This is a great bill. This bill will go a lot, will do a lot, go a long way to make sure that the cost of cable television throughout America, particularly in underserved areas, that we will have competition and the cost of cable will be reduced. Mr. Speaker, the proponents of this particular amendment, or the opponents of this particular resolution, you know, they're trying to confuse us. They're trying to confuse it. They want us to eat the wrapper and throw the candy bar away. They want us to walk outside when it's bright and sunshiny with an umbrella over our head.
Classic
But
propaganda.
when in the midst of the rain and the storm, we'll walk out with nothing covering our heads.
No, nothing
They're trying to
covering our heads.
confuse us. And Mr. Speaker, I know that this bill will drive the cost of cable down for my community and my district and districts like mine across the country. More than that, this bill, Mr. Speaker, will allow for diversity in ownership, diversity in programming. This bill will allow minorities to get into the cable industry and to the telecommunication industry. I urge my colleagues, don't fall for the confusion. Be clear. Vote against this motion to recommit.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Keep rolling the clip.
Without objection, the previous question is ordered. On the motion, recommit. The question is on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The noes have it. The motion is not agreed to.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for the yeas and nays, and I want to say that I forcefully oppose this legislation and would ask my colleagues to do so.
The yeas and nays are requested.
The yeas and nays be recorded.
The yeas and nays requested.
They're asking for a yes.
In favor, rise. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their vote by electronic device. Pursuant to clause.
I want to make a very specific point here. I focused a lot on this program about providing factual information. Information I personally have looked at myself instead of watching a documentary and repeating it verbatim. Actually looking at the information for yourself and validating that it's real. We have a very small window left to defend a program like this, a building like this, which, by the way, they will have to pull me off of the roof because they're going to have to pry it from my hands, as we all should be saying, if they were to take away the franchise agreement, which, of course, I must add, was never brought into the discussion. It kept around a smokescreen issue. This is key. This is key. They kept it around economic redlining and discrimination, important issues. But the knights in shining armor never came. They were never there. No one came up and really brought the issues forth about PEG, public education, and local government information. The concept of censorship and the vocal movement of the anti-war patriotic movement in this country today was not brought up. Donald Rumsfeld's document, Operation Information Roadmap, was not discussed. A public document recently released as a result of a Freedom of Information Act that documented their admitted plans to attack computer network servers. In the backdrop of all this is the fasci. The fasci, the symbol taking you back to the days of Mussolini and fascism in Italy. The fasci of Adolf Hitler, who also shared the vision of the one world order. Adolf Hitler, who shared the vision of propagandizing, molding, controlling, socially engineering his population to be of one mind, to be of one race, to be of one thought, and to share the same cultic belief system that all of their economic problems that were orchestrated by design were the result of a few Jews. In fact, all the Jews. That was their thesis. We can see in the 1950s, we adopted our war on the communists. And now we have our own war on terror with the aid of Homeland Security, similar to the Fatherland Security. of Nazi Germany. George Bush can make public statements about how he believes that a terrorist child should have his testicles crushed if information needs to be extracted from the father who's the suspect at Gitmo. All this is public. Look it up for yourself. Public. That's where Congress steps in and says, okay, we got a nut in the White House. We got ourselves a situation here. You'd think that's the topic to be taught. We got a problem. A mentally deranged psychopath is operating his secretive plans and secret black operations and joint efforts with groups like the Mossad, the MI5, CIA, including ISI. The Congress doesn't get to know about that information. It's secret, it's classified, and that's okay. So that is the issue that I present with you tonight. The magnifying scope truly is on Congress, truly is on the lapdogs, the beasts that serve loyally the master. They are responsible. Nuremberg trials. Nuremberg trials. And of course, we move and we seg our way to the rest of the evening and this new concept of foreign policy, torture, exportation, almost like a product, like a candy bar, delivered. The idea of torture and harassment to people all over the world, including this one. Report number 2. Now, Amnesty International, according to Reuters, has urged European states yesterday to stop being partners in crime with the United States over the alleged kidnapping of terror suspects and transfer to countries that use torture. Now, in a report and letter addressed to EU leaders, the human rights group backed accusations that the CIA, or Al-Qaeda, for some of the more educated members of the audience, ran secret transfer flights known as renditions, and that European countries were fully aware of them. Amnesty International says there is irrefutable evidence of European complicity in the unlawful practices of renditions. So the European Council must therefore put a resolution to stop the attitude of see no evil, hear no evil that has prevailed so far, Amnesty said, again referring to the EU summit. The Council in Europe report so that more than 20, mostly European countries, colluded in a, quote, global spider's web of secret CIA jails and flight transfers of terror suspects that stretch from Asia to Gitmo Bay. Now, it's amazing to hear the beast actually speak through the channels, the mediums of Ann Coulter, as she describes the 9/11 widows as being only out for themselves. You can hear it for yourself. Her book was published on 666. Of course, 666 had no result. There was no terrorist attack like some have actually predicted or feared. I think that would be a little too obvious. 666 is a date. Whether the Revelation 666 means something, I do not know. But however, Ann Coulter decided that 666 decided to release her book. Her new war on liberalism and freedom was released on that day. That was the day, because it was all about publicity. Then everyone began to talk about Ann Coulter and this beast-like voice coming out of her mouth about the 9/11 widows. And then everyone was talking about what? You know what? Chapter 5 or 8, whatever it is. You hear that key word, Ann Coulter's book, chapter whatever, and people want to go and find out what's in that book. All of this was part of selling her book. That's all it was. Mike Savage, same thing. We should bomb a billion. Say there's a billion Muslims, bomb all of them, all the billion. The full billion Muslims, just bomb them. I have the MP3 at home. It is on the internet. He said things like this over and over again, yet this is the voice of America. This is the voice of reason. I think not. I think not. And you know that's not true either. But these people are directing this pile of garbage beamed at millions of susceptible Americans, Asians, Middle Easterns. They don't know what war's like. They don't know what it's like to have your door kicked in at 5 in the morning a gun put against your head, while watching your children and wife screaming in the corner of the room. They do not know what that feels like. They've never felt anything like that before. And I know most of you have never felt that feeling before, that people are going through right now on this planet. And to see the people in Congress, we know George Bush is of the devil. We know he worships Lucifer. Look at his actions, Christians, those that are still left out there. Whatever religion you may believe in, look at the actions, not the rhetoric. See through Trinity Broadcasting. See through the lie that has been spoon-fed to you and your children over generation and will be perfected for the next generation to come. It's amazing. But that's where the money is. And even though the ratings are falling around Fox News, falling around these people, the sensationalism still is too much for any American to handle. They'll tune in anyway just to hear the obscene things that these men and women are saying, the things that they support. They know not what it's like to be at war. And it's when that reality clicks with a lot of us that we wake up and we feel that sickness deep in the pit of our stomach because we know we've been betrayed by the people that are supposed to be our protection. We don't want to have a militia. I don't want to feel like I have to have guns in my house. I'm for the Second Amendment, but personally I'm anti-gun because I don't believe in violence. So if we don't have a violent society, if we're not going to build up armies in our own neighborhood of militias, we have to have a Congress that will stand for the people. This is deadly serious. This is not a game. There was someone that dared call me 2 weeks ago and say, I have no right to speak about the atrocities, which I'm about to get into, about the military, unless I am enrolled in the military myself. So the fascist statements, the propaganda, it's there in black and white. You can see it. You can read it. You know it's there. So educate the rest of the world. And report number 3, another whistleblower that used to work for the CIA is coming out with more information on interrogation today. An expert in CIA interrogation techniques says the Australian Guantanamo Bay detainee, David Hicks, has been subjected to the most extreme torture in the agency's history. American academic Professor Alfred McCoy has been studying CIA interrogation techniques for 50 years. This is going to be interesting to many of you that have been researching MKUltra. Professor McCoy says Gitmo is an ad hoc laboratory used to perfect CIA psychological torture methods. He has told ABC TV's late night program, again, I'll repeat that, he has told a mainstream publication, ABC's TV late night, that Hicks was subjected to 244 days of sensory deprivation, disorientation, and was left in a dark cell and denied sunlight. His only contact was a weekly visit by the military chaplain. David Hicks, he says, has suffered untold psychological damage that will take a great deal of care, a great deal of treatment, and probably the rest of his life to move beyond. He said it constitutes torture when this is going on. The question is, what kind of torture? Psychological torture, not the conventional physical brutal torture. It's a distinctly American form of torture. The suicides of 3 inmates have prompted renewed concerns for Hicks' welfare. The federal government said he's fine with a sore... Okay, yeah. The federal government says this is nothing but a sore back. This guy's just complaining. But Professor McCoy says Hicks shows all the signs of someone who has been subjected to psychological torture. This is the new breed. This is the new 100 caliber bullet of social engineering. They are raising the Richter scale on how far they will abuse and rape your fellow brothers and sisters. Throughout history, the government used to uphold laws pertaining to slavery, while the slaves had to stay on their plantation. They were either shot or whipped until they were finally beat into submission. And they were never allowed to leave the plantation without their own personal surveillance society back then, which was the tag around their neck that bore the name of their master. This is our history. You don't even have to go back 50 years to read about the lynchings. But lynchings still go on today. They're not necessarily reported, but they're of a different caliber. They're of a different sort. The Crips, the Bloods, the gangsters, La Cosa Nostra, all the horrors Hollywood's brought you over the years and will continue to. And also glamorize mafia programs like The Sopranos, which I condemn, as well as I condemn UFC. Because these programs, as some of my friends watch, are geared towards giving you a fake sense of male, masculine exercise and energy. And you notice how dark and sick it is becoming as the violence is more extreme year after year. The violence, the Richter scale, the programming from the video games keeps raising year after year. Now think about what it's going to be like, say, in about 10 years, in about 15 years, in about 30 years. I was at an Albertsons on 122nd and Southeast Division about 2 weeks ago and was absolutely horrified to see the growth and intensity in the surveillance society right here in Portland, Oregon. First of all, I didn't have a preferred card, so I had to sign up for that just so I would get the discount. Then I moved on to get the groceries, but you see above the cigarettes, they have a big monitor saying you're being watched. You go by the meat counter above the T-bones and steaks and cube steaks, 22-inch monitor, you are being watched. But that's not where it ends. You work your way to buy your groceries. That is, if you go to the human line as opposed to the machine line, which is completely designed, admittedly, to phase out the human employee. Again, we are the slaves, they are the masters, as they see you. And you work your way through the line, and it's a telescreen courtesy of TV Guide with a famous E-channel talk soap host who's telling you what's on network TV later on tonight. And of course, within Albertsons, within the grid, the surveillance society outside in the parking lot, including Blockbuster and the other cooperating companies, have hired an armed guard to just walk around. An armed guard just walks around. There hasn't been any crimes reported. That second doesn't matter. Just a regular armed guard walking amongst us because our society has dictated that that is how we deal with crime. Because crime is real. The tweaker problem on 122nd, Fox blows it up. I'm here to tell you, though, it's also real. And there are ways that we do need to address the drug problem in our city. And the problem that the Portland police has brought to the table is that incarceration, incrimination will get rid of the problem. Well, next week when I talk with Joanne Bowman, who's been fighting the racist policies within the Portland police, we'll be talking about racial discrimination and the ratio of just how many African Americans are enslaved in our own city. That's next week, Joanne Bowman. But back to Gitmo and this psychology of torture. We're going to play that clip from Network in about 15-20 minutes from now. But what's upsetting is the stages of despotism, how distinctly clear, how plain in sight they truly are. In report number 4, the suicides of 3 detainees at Gitmo in Cuba amount to acts of war, according to the U.S. military. The camp commander, and this is also confirmed by Fox News, they were real behind supporting this statement. Now, they said the 2 Saudis and Yemens were, quote, committed and killed themselves in an act of, quote, asymmetric warfare waged against us. Again, psychological warfare. Yeah, it's them. Lawyers said the men who hung themselves, had been driven by despair. A military investigation into the deaths is now underway amid growing calls for the detention center to be moved or closed. Now, Walter White, an international lawyer who specializes in human rights, told the BBC that the camp is likely to be considered a great stain on human rights records in the U.S. Now, there have been dozens of attempts, but none have been successful until now. Report number 5. Now, the U.S. Marines have also launched a probe into a video posted on the internet. There's a graphic image coming your way, so you've been warned. apparently showing a Marine singing about the killing of Iraqi civilians. A spokesman described the video as clearly inappropriate and contrary to the standards of the Marines. The lyrics caught on tape refer to the shooting of Iraqi civilians and children, especially children, by insurgents, and how the Marine responds, opening fire himself. The video also refers to Iraqis as Hajis, a term usually applied to someone who's completed the pilgrimage to Mecca, and I apologize if I mispronounced that. But now that term is used commonly to insult Iraqis. In the video, dressed in a green shirt and military-style trousers and boots, a man sings, quote, "I grabbed her little sister and put her in front of me." As the bullets begin to fly, the blood sprayed from her eyes, and I laughed maniacally. Report number 6. Senator Hillary Clinton was met with loud booing and hissing and protest chants during a speech at a conference of left-leaning Democrats yesterday when she repeated her view that American troops should stay the course in Iraq. Ms. Clinton called the Iraq war a grotesque mistake before adding, "We can't leave before we take care of the problem." And the concept of what she said sent off loud boos from across all parts of the hall. Many there were surprised at what she said. They were hoping, a spokesperson from Code Pink said that they hoped that she would come here and at least give us some ground. I'm appalled and shocked that there are still people who have not figured out this fake left-right paradigm of the left hand washing the right and the right washing the left. In our own backyard, report number 7. Younger than some of us, a 21-year-old woman from Eugene has now been arrested. The Army has set out a warrant after she has gone AWOL, and she has now been returned to Fort Lewis, Washington. The Eugene police spokesman said she didn't want to go back to Iraq. She was picked up Sunday night at the request of the Army. They identified her by tattoos described in the warrant. Pause. Throughout high school, I did not know about 9/11. I was too young then, but slowly but surely I had started to understand what the police state was. And I would warn my close friends that were getting tattoos, do not get a tattoo. It is identification. A tattoo is a way that you brand yourself, a way that you help the system identify you. If you know how the police do business, you know that it's their primary way of identifying the cattle. Do not tattoo your body. Do not do that. It's another identification. If you're going to tag your body, might as well go ahead and get the chip. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that put tattoos on their body. They're going to use that to identify who you are. I am telling you that they have done this before. They did it to the Jews with the numbers on, and this is how they analyze and keep African Americans in the database as far as known gang members. As long as you're a known gang member with a tattoo on your body, you're permanently in the database. And of course, Joanne will be able to testify to some of that later on next week. These things, again, are happening not far away, not over there. They're popping up incrementally, piece by piece, in our local community. Iran officially has been given an ultimatum to stop what it's doing, gathering its own energy source, or suffer the consequences. And now they're finding out that, in fact, Russia and China have a stake in the matter as well. There is legislation to bring about a draft again. There are people pushing that still. But of course, enter the industrial complex of the robotic and AI automated robotic warriors and weapons of terror. Report number 8. Because the worldwide spending on the arms war, the arms race, whatever you want to call it, it's now at, of course, a record high, just like Bush's approval rating. The world military expenditure in 2005 increased $33 billion US dollars, and the U.S. accounted for about 80%, or $26 billion of the total increase, the Institute said. Last year, a total of way over $1 trillion was spent on military expenditure around the world, which equals $173 per capita. The U.S. accounted for 48% of all military spending, an increase of 1% from 2004, as its costly campaigns in Iraq and Afghanistan continued. Again, this is the new industry that the youth that I spoke of with the video games tailored specifically are being prepared for. Report number 9. The Predator is back. And their propaganda commercial is splattered by CNN. This is actually a promotion campaign, friends. The Predator is the U.S. military's most sophisticated killing machine in the war on terror. A flying assassin constantly searching for Osama bin Bush, another top al-Qaeda members. CIA was given a rare access glimpse into the highly classified planes, which are operated by the U.S. Army, Navy, and Air Force, as well as the CIA. Each plane is worth about $4 million and armed with 2 powerful Hellfire missiles. Hellfire missiles, they call them. Yeah, the good old boys. The number of Predators operating in Afghanistan is classified, but there are enough of them to maintain an aerial view of the battlefield every hour of every day and night. The missions are always top secret. CNN was told that one of the Predators in front of the reporter recently fired a Hellfire missile at a group of Taliban insurgents, killing 12 of them. It was launched by a young woman who was 23 years old. 6 years before the 9/11 attacks, terrorist attacks, the CIA spy plane captured what is to be believed to be Osama bin Laden. They failed to kill him then, but will they now? That's how the article ends. Report number 10. The Al-Qaeda leader, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, dead. They say he lived for a full hour after 2 500-pound bombs blew this shack to smithereens. The allegations, yes, have been made that he is an agent provocateur, like many others that we've heard about. His history is questioned, even his death. An entire shack is blown apart, 2 500-pound bombs blow it to smithereens. He breathes, he's alive for another hour. Bush, I thought Jesus told you to strike Al-Qaeda, and you did. I thought you said that. Now, wouldn't Jesus nudge God and go, hey, God, this is Jesus talking. When you strike Zarqawi, could you make sure he dies right away? Yet, they're to report it. And we're to believe it. Again, this is Hollywood. This is news blended as one, creating disinformation. So many questions, so many questions. Report number 11, as we move and narrow our lens back to England. Prime Minister Tony Blair says he's not afraid of a Muslim, quote, backlash in the wake of an anti-terror raid in a house in Forest Gate, East London. He said he backed the police and security services 101%. 90% is not good enough. 100% is not good enough. He took the effort, that extra effort, to say 101%, and refused to say that the armed operation had become a failure. Folks, let me clue you in on what happened. The police had questioned 2 brothers, one of whom they immediately shot in the chest when they entered the home without identifying themselves, responding on an anonymous tip. Of course, an anonymous tip that we can never verify even exists. He says he supports the police 100%, and these young men that this have happened to are going on talk radio. Their history has been looked at. They are not terrorists. They have no ties to terrorists. They found nothing in their home. They received a tip. They were getting ready to do something. They were guilty of nothing other than their race and religion and someone posing a tip. But a tip could come from someone who's been brainwashed by the system. Remember Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song. I love that song. Somebody heard that in a taxi. Some stupid, retarded, unpatriotic, and he wasn't naturally of America, so English wasn't his first language. He heard the lyrics and thought this guy was getting ready to execute a terrorist attack, and that these were perhaps battle cry lyrics booming from the radio. That wasn't the case. That's not what happened. But that is what the media told him was the enemy. That's what the media told him was what was really trying to destroy America, instead of those occupying the White House and those pulling the strings from Europe right now. Report number 12. But in Cleveland City, Councilman Zach Reed, his solution to curbing crime in his city is a little different. He likens kids to terrorists and says they should be dealt with as such. They're modern-day terrorists, those that drug deal in the streets, those that operate in the ghetto there, those that even, we have problems in our own city, but they're not terrorists. They're still part of our community. He's urging council to fight violence the same way they would fight terrorism. Saying, quote, "Therefore, the time has come to make Ward 3 a police state and submit a true zero-tolerance policy." He said he received permission to use a $50,000 federal grant to hire off-duty police officers with arrest powers to patrol the streets of Mount Pleasant. It doesn't sound like Mount Pleasant anymore. Email me if you live in Cincinnati. I want some follow-up stories on this. We will be implementing the same policies against terrorists, more surveillance cameras. He plans to decrease crime by 70%, blah, 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 propaganda, we're going to take care of you, we love you, etc., etc. The same tactics. Megaton bomb, 500-pound bomb perhaps on a schoolyard because they deal a little coca, a little chiva in the school. No drug treatment, slash that aside. Put down the drug treatment detox centers. Hooper Detox in our own city is under attack. Drug treatment facilities have closed their doors in Portland while they dare to ask for more jail space. Go to hell, Bernie Gusto. Go to hell. Open up the drug treatment facility centers. You are scum. You don't know how to take care of the community. And I pray somebody delivers this message to you by email or telephone. Speaking of which, there was a few numbers pertaining to the Cope bill, pertaining to Save Access, that I don't believe I called for, because part of taking action is being brave. It's being American. It's saying I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore and we're going to fight back. We're not going to bow down. So bring up those numbers, which are at the top of the CG program, the numbers for Smith, the numbers for Wyden, also the numbers for the Congressional Switchboard. And give them a call. Be polite. Let them know specifically the information that you want them to have, that you do not want them to destroy network neutrality, that you do not want them to support things like the Cope bill, anything that would damage access television. The name of the bill, the Senate bill that we need to stop is, and I'm getting that for you in just a second. If Emily wants to write it down and get it for me or tell someone in staff to get it, that'd be great. 2686. You oppose 2686. But be polite. Don't pull an Alex Ansary or a Bill Hicks or a Alex Jones or a Sam Keniston. Don't do any of that. Don't take my channels. Be calm, be intelligent, know the issues, but most of all, educate them, for they have been deceived themselves. They have been deceived themselves. You know it's true. You know no one's giving them the basic facts. You know that's not happening. Report number 14. And of course, in the world of the chip, in a world where more than 230 physicians in the U.S. have bought microchips for implantations in patients, and where a club owner in Spain offers to implant VIP chips, the ethics of human microchip technology needs to be debated in Canada. This is according to an Ottawa professor. This is all happening pretty quickly, says Ian Kerr, an expert in ethics, law, and technology. He says, I don't think we're far off from it. Now, the privacy commissioner in Alberta, Frank Work, says that worried or scared, you know that if there's an advantage to it, either economic or medical, Someone out there is going to perfect it. Someone's going to bring it to an apex, to a point where it can be used in the near future. Quote, we'll do it in a well-intentioned way, wanting to look after people. But like with anything, as soon as you bring in the well-intentioned application, someone will figure out the evil application. I'm going to draw. I'm getting a lot of news tonight. Side point, watch this show with the pen and paper, write down the replay dates. You can also watch the show on alexansary.com. The show is uploaded to that. If you want to communicate with me, you can also join the forum. So I encourage you to join the forum and post information that you're finding out as well at alexansary.com. This document, this letter that I hold before you before I finish off a few articles and go to your phone calls, we won't have time for network tonight, was from Kaiser Permanente. A friend of mine was emailed this letter saying, quote, the state of Oregon has passed laws about anonymous and coded genetic research. These laws give you certain rights. You may decide if you want your health information or biological samples to be available for use in future anonymous or coded genetic research. You have the right to tell us whether you want it to be used. It's your choice. They are talking about your DNA, my friends. And a viewer had also emailed me and said they got the letter too. I know you can't see it from here, but look in your mailbox, look in your mailboxes from the past few weeks, and look for a letter from Kaiser Permanente. Email me if you see it and if it says similar things or additional things. There's a form on the back, and they want you to fill it out and return it to them so that you will not be in the DNA database. Report number 15. Alex Jones, detained in Canada at the Ottawa airport late Wednesday night. His passport was confiscated and his camera equipment and most of his belongings. Citizenship and Immigration Canada agents stopped Alex Jones, whose films include, you know, martial law, all the rest, and questioned him for nearly 4 hours. Now, this is Ottawa's report. According to Alex, it was 15 hours. Before letting him go with only a change of clothes and telling him to return Thursday morning. Mr. Jones and his crew, camera operators, Ryan and Aaron, I know I've met one of them, traveled to Canada to film a documentary about the Bilderberg Group, a secretive group of former politicians and business leaders who are meeting in Ottawa this week. A citizenship and immigration representative said her department was unable to comment on Mr. Jones' detention. As a result of the Privacy Act, we are forbidden from discussing individual cases, yes, said Marina Wilson, spokesperson for the department. I'm not aware of this detention, but, you know, whatever happens is at the discretion of our visa officers. Again, no oversight, no jurisdiction, no real accountability, acting like the noble lords prancing around on their horses looking at you, the slave. Report number 16, and quietly but also systematically, the Bush administration is advancing a plan I just found out about today. I heard rumors, but today I found out the fact by looking at the industry publication website that wants to build this super highway, this super NAFTA highway, 4 football fields wide through the heart of U.S. along I-35, from the Mexican border at Laredo, Texas, to the Canadian border north of Duluth, Minnesota. Once complete, the new road will allow containers from the Far East to enter the United States through the Mexican port of Laredo, Cardenas. Bypassing the Longshoremen's Union in the past, they're just gonna go right by the Union. Doesn't even matter what they think. Screw the Union. Let's pause for a sec. About 3 years ago, I worked at Burlingame Fred Meyer. I worked at Safeway there. It was like my first job. I started working hard when I was in high school. That's where I built up my ethic for working hard for my money. Not wanting everything to come easy, because we had so little when I was little. My dad had so little. So did my mom. So I had to go out and work. I didn't want to give them my money, the $40, the union. I thought they were like the mafia, because I read about the mafia. I'd heard about the mafia. I used to research what La Cosa Nostra was before I understood the government was the real criminals. Once I learned the truth. Point being is that at Fred Meyer, I saw right away why the union was there to protect us, because I saw so many things that the managers would try to pull over our eyes to protect the bottom line. And we learn that the corporation is diabolical at different stages of psychological development. But at some point, if we open our eyes, we can see it because it's obvious. It's in plain sight. So they're going to, the union is being downplayed. American integrity, what we want is not even up for debate. The key issue in this is that this is not up for congressional debate, nor is it being talked about. The Mexican trucks, without the involvement of the Teamsters Union, will drive on what will be the nation's most modern highway straight into the heart of America. They're going to cross the border in fast lanes checked only electronically by the new Ansary system, spelled in capital letters SENTRI, a new tracking system. The first customs stop will be a Mexican customs office in Kansas City. The new Smartport Complex facility being built for Mexico to cost $3 million to the U.S. taxpayers, Kansas City. Report number, we're going to go on to the 17th report of the evening once I find it in my mountain of paperwork. The idea of this massive super highway, I find a little disturbing. I find a little upsetting. Again, lack of comment by Bush. The American public is not being told about this, and you can pick your poison. You can pick your dose. You can pick your lie. This superhighway, this system of NAFTA, this system of free trade, people are waking up. People are waking up to the fact that we're not being served in the process. And I'll cover that in just a minute. But people are waking up. Let me kick this off real sec. In report number 7, they will try more and more to... could you shut that door back there? That's a little distracting. Thank you. In Florida, the high schools there have just passed a bill dictating that students will have to declare majors and minors just as college students do. Again, pick your box. Pick your mold. It's like it's like the game that we played when I was younger. Put the peg in the hole, the right square, match it up. Perfecting the idea of being a cog. Governor Jeb Bush passed this legislation. I see it as kind of an offshoot of the New Freedom Initiative Act almost. It's definitely an attack on your mind. There wasn't any opposition to this. I didn't know what I wanted to do until I was at least 21 or 22. But yet they expect when you're in high school, when you enter about 14, 15, to have that figured out. I'm going to have to follow up on that story. That makes no sense to me. Report number 18. This is a brief update with technology. Sitting stone and still underneath a skull cap fit with dozens of electrodes. An Austrian scientist, Bat Brunner, stares at a laptop computer. Without moving so much as a nostril, he suddenly begins to compose a message by thought, letter by letter, on a giant screen overhead. I'm going to finish reading this. Call in. We're going to take one phone call in the meantime. You can go ahead and make your call right now, and then we'll go to you. Bonjour, he writes, with the power of the mind, much to the amazement of the largely French audience of scientists and curious onlookers gathered at the 4-day European Research and Innovation Expedition in Paris, which opened Thursday. No spoons were bent, mind definitely over matter. Wow. This is interesting. I think we can look at that last article in one or two ways. In conclusion, it is not that technology is evil. It is not that human progress is evil. It is not that perhaps watching the television, a program like this, is evil. It's the intention, most of all, it is keeping the oversight over the men who control this technology. It is a fact. People in government want to enslave you. On the topic of the Illuminati, as people try to define this narrow group of people controlling the planet, don't lose yourself or your mind in the process. Remember what is important for you today, the battles that you can fight without losing your mind, your sanity, and letting them hijack your emotions as they bombard one diabolical piece of propaganda at your face through the internet, through the radio, through the papers on the street, through the cable TV, and the channels surrounded me up and down. From Fox to NBC, they are lying to you, but you know this. So, knowing the system is corrupt, knowing the most advanced and accurate information about this global criminal crime syndicate that dwarfs the mightiest days of La Cosa Nostra, the mightiest days of any of the families, any of the 5 families operating out of New York through the 1970s and 1980s. It's not even in the same ballpark. I'm asking you to look at the profile, understand the agenda. They are not serving the people. They are consolidating wealth and not just doing things through one vehicle, through one mode. It's through multiple. That's the profile. That's what you look at. When you find it, expose it, and educate people. That's what we have to do, and call those numbers to defend cable access. You have 20 seconds, caller. I'm sorry, we're at the end of the program. Go ahead, caller. Go ahead, caller. Okay, so I'd like to thank you for tuning in tonight. Most of all, you have the power to change things in your own way, in your little ripple effect way. That is the circumference, the energy you direct to those around you, the energy you bring to the table. Are you a warrior? Are you someone who stands up to authority? Are you someone that bows down whenever the man asks you to bow down? Those are the questions that every single day you will be asked more and more. Bottom line, the Illuminati, the global elite criminal crime syndicate dwarfing the mafia, have their plans drawn out, and they are executing them today. The bottom line is, do you have your plans figured out? Until next week, when we continue to talk about this again, I'm Alex Ansary, reminding you, the path to the ultimate truth still starts within. Good night.